something inherently wrong when the people repeatedly burn out of their community.
They've made a great deal of progress. I mean, look at their successes. What about their artists, their music?
I love their music too, okay? I just say, let them sing, let them dance. Let them not be so damn violent.
White people are genetically inferior.
Imagine a world where everything is different.
Be quiet, will you like the white one?
I don't want that one.
There must have been 50 little white kids all running around. It was so adorable.
But nothing has changed.
Next time you have something delivered here to the house, could you send someone other than the brother you sent by today?
You follow me? I don't think things are gonna work out.
I promise you, honey, it's gonna be better.
I just lost my job at the factory, and I need to talk to him.
I don't get involved in these matters.
From the producer of Pulp Fiction.
I got your money. I told you I got your money. You've been bugging my wife all week. We ain't living here, sir. I can't even make it.
1995's most provocative film.
What's going on?
Put your hands up!
What did I do?
Leave him alone!
Go ahead.
John Travolta.
I come to your house. You ain't got no time for me. Now I got a gun. You got all the time in the world.
Harry Belafonte.
Lots of people lose their jobs. Tough luck. Get another one. Got a wife, kids. Got a lot to lose.
Dad! It's crazy, man!
I don't think I can let you go, Dad.
Don't know it's better than... Leave him alone! Try and get out!
You blame everybody else in the whole world but yourself.
Somebody! Help me!
White Man's Burden.
From the concept alone, this has a really good idea to it. It's set in an alternate America where the social and economic positions of black people and white people are reversed. And that's something that could be really, really interesting. Like, it could be something, you would see somebody like Spike Lee probably doing a movie like this, or even someone more recently, Boots Riley. This has kind of a feel of something that would come from the same person that made Sorry to Bother You, which is a great movie. And it starts off pretty strongly, too. It starts off like you think it's going to be. You think it's going to be like a satirical commentary on what would happen if the roles are reversed. And it does start off that way in the beginning, but it really, really does not work in the end. This is one of those movies that has such a great concept to it and such good people enough there to make it work, but it just kind of takes the safe route all the way to the rest of it, because it doesn't really do anything interesting with that plot that they have here. I mean, you've got two really good, capable actors, John Travolta and Harry Belafonte, and you also have a cast that includes Kelly Lynch, Margaret Avery, Cheryl Lee Ralph, Carrie Snodgrass, Andy Lawrence is in here as well, and you think you'd have something there, but it just doesn't come together, I think, as well as they wanted to, and I think I can tell you why that is. I think it's because they took the route of, let's turn this into a little bit of an action movie. We're going to make it so that John Travolta has to kidnap the Harry Belafonte character, and then we're just going to kind of do... we want to try to recreate Pulp Fiction success again, and why not? Because this is the same man that did Pulp Fiction, the producer, Lawrence Bender. But, just from the way it was starting, it doesn't end the way the premise promised it would, or the beginning of the film would. It just goes kind of the safe route. It feels like it doesn't want to take that big risk that they should have taken. Like if you had a better director and a better writer here, they would have gone all the way with this premise 100%. Like I said, get a Spike Lee, get a Boots Riley, hell, get a Jordan Peele to do something like this, but not like this. I mean, there is enough here where I'm not going to blame it on John Travolta and Harry Belafonte. I think the cast themselves are doing the best job with the material given to them, but the material there just isn't that great. I mean, the performances, I think, really do carry this to being somewhat of a watchable movie, but it's a movie that's like maybe a one-time watch, but other than that, though, there's no reason to really watch it afterwards. But I was really disappointed by this movie. I thought there was going to be so much more just from that premise, just from the way it started, and just by the fact of the people that they have on board in the cast. But other than that, though, it's just a mess of a film. It's not that engaging. It's not that exciting. It's not even really all that interesting. It takes a good idea and just doesn't really deliver on it in the end. It's a real disappointment considering everything they have involved in this. It just didn't work for me. And I know a lot of people it didn't work either, so I guess I'm not alone on that front, but it was kind of a small step back for John Travolta, who was having this massive comeback after Pulp Fiction. He had just done Get Shorty, and then he follows it up with this, which kind of took a dip in his career a little bit, but it wouldn't be too long until he got back to it, but we'll get to that in 96, but that's White Man's Burden for you. So let's move on to the next movie that we have here, and that is Jeff Bridges starring in Wild Bill.
There were many men who tamed the West.
You best hand over the gun, Phil.
But only one
The man that killed Wild Bill is gonna be awful famous.
made it wild.
I come here to kill you.
Wild Bill has accepted your challenge.
He wants me to show some color.
Don't do it, Bill!
Take a walk on the wild side. Wild Bill.
Kind of like with White Man's Burden, another movie that has a lot of promise to it. I mean, Walter Hill directed this. This is the same guy that did 48 Hours. And, of course, he did these great movies, Brewster's Millions, The Warriors, I guess Red Heat's not a great movie, but it's a fun movie. But he has made a lot of really good movies. And you got Jeff Bridges starring as Wild Bill Hickok, and also Ellen Barkin's in here, John Hurt, Diane Lane, Keith Carradine, David Arquette, Christina Applegate, Bruce Dern, James Remare. Just a great cast overall, and it just doesn't deliver what it should have really delivered to everybody. This movie feels like a film that was trying to be too close to a Western film, and Westerns are really a hard seller. Like, yeah, you get a great movie like Unforgiven every once in a while, and something unique like Sam Raimi's The Quick and the Dead from earlier this year, but other than that, though, like, most of these Westerns have not performed very well. It's because Westerns are really hard to make in modern times and make a success, and this is a prime example of it. And there's not really a whole lot done with the story here. It's a very mediocre story. You got Jeff Bridges trying the best he can. He really is the strongest thing about the film, but it's just stuff we've seen done over and over again in Westerns. It's not engaging, it's not exciting, and there's not really a whole lot of intrigue behind it. There's not really that level where I should be invested in this. It just doesn't work on a number of levels. And I even think that Walter Hill himself was not happy with the way it was filmed. And I think that was because MGM sold this movie as something that it really wasn't. Like, they were not selling the movie the right way. And lo and behold, look what it bombed off of, only making 15 times less than what the movie actually cost to make. I mean, $30 million budget and you only make $2 million off of it. That is not a good sign whatsoever. So, yeah, quick one there, but that's Wild Bill. Not a very good movie, and you kind of see why. So, let's move on to the last movie that we have here, and that is Andy Garcia leading another all-star cast in Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead.
Tell you about Jimmy the Saint.
Jimmy the Saint was a good man
You're different, Jimmy. You got decency.
who left behind a bad world.
You glide.
I glide?
You glide. It's a very attractive quality. You're a thing to be amazed by.
Then one day, the old boss forced him back.
Why me? I got a call in the note. What do you want done? It's just an action. It's not a piece of work.
Look at this. All the Pig Brothers from back in the day.
One-shot deal. We're in, we're out. Are you in?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're still crazy, man.
Well, I am what I am.
It would be smooth.
Bill, you're gonna be with Jimmy in the moving van. Bring the kid there, we scare him, and that's it.
It would be easy.
How's it looking, big man?
Looking good. It would be the biggest mistake
Can I see some ID, please?
he ever made.
I'll give you ID!
You got 48 hours. Leave Denver.
Now, time is running out.
You already made a call. The guy from El Paso, Mr. Shush, the most lethal contract killer west of the Mississippi.
And he's got 48 hours
Buckwitz. Buckwitz for all of us, Jimmy. Even you.
to make the wrong things right.
I met someone. I don't want to hurt.
Didn't you learn nothing from me?
We don't stand up for each other. We're gone.
Martinez brothers out of Albuquerque even called in.
Andy Garcia, Christopher Lloyd, Treat Williams, William Forsythe, Gabrielle Anwar, Bill Nunn, Jack Warden, Perusa Balk, and Christopher Walken.
You know, I could look at you forever. I wouldn't have to do anything else.
Things to do in Denver when you're dead.
It says a lot when the studio that put out Pulp Fiction says, we want to make a Pulp Fiction knockoff, and here you go. This is a Pulp Fiction knockoff, and not a particularly good one. I mean, kind of like with the other two movies that we have here, a pretty good cast overall. Andy Garcia, Christopher Lloyd, William Forsythe, Bill Nunn, Treat Williams, Jack Warden, Steve Buscemi, Fairuza Balk, Gabrielle Anwar, Christopher Walken, Bill Cobbs, Jenny McCarthy's also in here, Tiny Lister, Don Cheadle, Josh Charles. Good names in here, and they just don't really deliver a solid movie overall. It's just kind of a mediocre film that, again, is trying to be too much like Pulp Fiction, and it definitely shows in here. Like, there are elements in here that are not exactly straight from Pulp Fiction, but you could just tell the person that made this movie says, I want to make a movie like Pulp Fiction, but I don't want to make a movie that is original or unique or conceptually good. I want to take a straight knockoff of Pulp Fiction and put it into this, and lo and behold, that's what you get here. It's a film that has so much potential to it, kind of like all the movies we looked at this week. All these movies had some good potential to it, but just bad delivery, just in the script department, or trying to make something off of something successful, being a knockoff of something much more successful. Only other thing I can say is that this is the first one directed by Gary Fleder, who would find some success with his next film, Kiss the Girls, and Don't Say a Word. Also did Runaway Jury, The Express, Homefront. So he has made some decent films, but this one is definitely not one of those films. It's a massive misfire, once again, with good potential there. Things to do in Denver when you're dead. A pretty disappointing week, to say the least. And now you know why I said Thanksgiving weekend, the week after Thanksgiving weekend, I should say, is not a good weekend to release new movies and hope for good fortunes. And those three films are a good example. But we'll try again on the next episode. We got the week after that.
Grab your coat, get your hat.
For George Banks, life was good. It was wonderfully, uneventfully predictable.
Hey, Dad, did you hear the news?
What news?
But not for long.
Hi, Dad.
I know what it is. You bought a house, right?
I thought you guys were going to have a baby.
Get out of here.
Tell him.
I'm going to have a baby.
Congratulations. Grandpa. Here's what I'm thinking. I want to look younger.
Now it's out with the old,
Young, right?
It's bitchin'.
Bitchin'.
in with the new.
Hey, what do you think? I look like the guy you married, right?
Kind of. George, what's gotten into you, honey?
And
Kids, you're gonna have a baby.
he's right back where he started.
Excuse me?
The bread and the movie? Get out of town! You know, I was just suggesting being a grandfather. I think I'm gonna faint.
Honey, I need to know how you feel about all this.
They don't have hot dogs,
George?
I feel super about it. At least going to the movies, that'll be economical. One child, 2 seniors, thanks.
This Christmas,
We have stirks, of course.
Stirks?
the best things in life
Hello! That's good!
are the least expected.
Dad, what are you taking?
Well, Dad hadn't been sleeping so well lately, so I thought I'd take a couple of very mild sleeping pills.
I couldn't sleep at all.
You taking sleeping pills? Mom!
What? This is it.
Touchstone Pictures presents Steve Martin,
Hey, man, what's with that face, huh?
Diane Keaton,
Uh-oh. Nice timing, I know.
Dad!
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Martin Short,
George, we're bonding here, aren't we?
We're moving her into delivery.
These women are my life.
and Kimberly Williams.
Dad.
Father of the Bride, Part 2.
I have the chair for the prostate exam.
Where your father go?
No, he was just here.
Come on in.
A Nancy Myers, Charles Shire film.
Yeah, that trailer gave away a whole lot of the movie, man, especially the third act. I mean, wow. I do not remember them giving away that much in the trailer whenever I saw that for the first time, but there you go right there. I mean, a lot of the end of this movie is in the last half of that trailer, and I'm just kind of like, that probably is not a good sign if you're giving away much of the movie in that little area there. But Father of the Bride Part 2, course, like I said, this is a sequel to Father of the Bride, which in and of itself was a remake of the original film. This sequel is a remake of the sequel to that, which it's called Father's Little Dividend, which nowadays probably wouldn't have been an easy sell, so I could see why they went with Father of the Bride Part 2. And, you know, there was a lot of intrigue with this sequel in particular, because when Disney made sequels to comedies like this, you know, we had Three Men and a Little Lady, Sister Act 2, Another Stakeout, they did not usually do as well as the original films did. They were usually less than successful films. They weren't seen as good as compared to the first movie. So, Father of the Bride Part 2 comes around, and I can easily say this: it's the best of the sequels that Touchstone has done with their comedies. It's not a great movie all around, but it definitely is something that I surprisingly found more enjoyable than the first movie. The first movie is a great film. I like the ideas that they have in this movie, having not only the daughter be pregnant, but also having Steve Martin's wife, Diane Keaton, be pregnant as well. It does lead to a lot of good comedic timing and a lot of good comedic ideas. And we've had comedies that focused on pregnancy that were not very good. Junior was not was an example of that, and 9 Months, which came out in the same year. But this movie definitely, it felt like it did a lot more with the concept and the ideas that they had than those movies did. And of course you have Charles Shire and Nancy Meyers, two very funny and very well known writers and directors who have done some pretty good comedies before this and after this. Like, these are the guys that also did Baby Boom. They did Irreconcilable Differences, and then after this they worked together on stuff like Alfie and the remake of Alfie, which is, I think, a very underrated remake. But Nancy Meyers has done a lot of works, including The Parent Trap, What Women Want, Something's Gotta Give, The Holiday, It's Complicated, The Intern. She's made a lot of great movies, and you know, it's not surprising that this movie is very enjoyable. Like, I think I'm one of the few people that would say that I actually did kind of find this a little bit more enjoyable than the first movie. I really liked the first movie a whole lot, and I thought this really exceeded a lot of my expectations, because they found a lot of ways to make the comedy work this time around. And yeah, there are those elements where it tries to go a little bit too close to being a little too, you know, dad joke type of things with like some of the younger humor that they have in here, but it's toned down and it's not all over the place, and it's only in little areas where it's just kind of like, yeah, it wasn't that great, but it was only for a few seconds. It's not like they're doing this the entire movie. And most of the time, it is kind of funny. Like, I love that idea that George, the Steve Martin character, decides to get his hair dyed. And it actually leads to a couple of decently funny moments in that particular case. But, yeah, I was pleasantly surprised at how much I really enjoyed this movie. I was not expecting to go into it liking it more than the first film. I thought, at the very least, I'd like it just as much as the original film. But it does find enough there to really put it over the first movie that they did. And that was a real surprise for me. I was not expecting that with this movie. I remember, the first time I saw it as a little kid, I thought it was alright, but as time went on and I finally got a chance to rewatch it again, I was just kind of like, you know what, I definitely like what you did there. You actually made something a little bit more fun than the original film, and you had a good concept to work off of, and you did a pretty good job of working on that front. And, you know, honestly, I would say that this is a really good sequel. It's definitely a little bit better than the first movie. Maybe not one of the greatest comedy sequels of all time, but definitely one of the biggest surprises I've seen in a long time. I really like this movie a lot more than the first film, which is very surprising, considering that I did very much enjoy the first film. So, anyway, that is Father of the Bride Part 2. So let's move on to that second movie that I haven't seen, but we can just talk about it real quickly, and that is, of course, Georgia.
Magic of the extraordinary movie critics are calling one of the 10 best films of the year. Jennifer Jason Leigh, an Academy Award nominee, Mayor Winningham, Georgia.
Yeah, I didn't know too much about this movie until I did the research for it, but it sounds pretty interesting. You have Jennifer Jason Leigh and Mayor Winningham, as the little clip there I showed you indicates, but Jennifer Jason Leigh plays this punky barroom singer who has this complicated relationship with her older sister, the older sister played by Georgia, and she's passionate, but the younger sister, Sadie, is very passionate but self-destructive and lacking in technical skills. She tries to match Georgia's accomplishments by becoming the lead singer for the punk rock band, but is unsuccessful and destroys herself through drug abuse. And Sadie comes to Georgia seeking help after she ends a relationship, and a reluctant Georgia tries to help her sister out on a continued downward spiral. So basically, this sounds like a story that you're basically following two sisters around in their relationships, And that's really all I know about this movie. This director, I think I'm going to pronounce this name wrong, but I'll see here. Ulu Grossbard, Ulugrosbard. He's a Belgian director. He's actually made some notable films, including Who is Harry Kellerman and Why is He Saying These Terrible Things About Me, which I think got some Oscar nominations in the 70s. The last movie he did before this was Falling in Love with Robert De Niro and Meryl Streep back in 1984, and they were pretty big stars back then. That movie was a notorious bomb. This person would make one more movie after this, and that is The Deep End of the Ocean with Michelle Pfeiffer, but we'll get to that one when we get to 99. But that's pretty much all I know about this one. It's got a decent cast to it, besides Liam Winningham. You got Ted Levine, John C. Reilly, Smokey Hormel, Jimmy Z, Joe Miller, these notable names in music. I mean, it could be interesting. I see some good reviews for it, so it definitely has the potential to be something pretty good, but I really don't know too much about this movie to really deviate into it, so yeah, that's pretty much all I got for you on this one. So that's Georgia.
First. Jumanji is more than a game. It's a new adventure.
Just give me the dice.
Every time, you roll the dice. Jumanji is coming. Robin Williams. Jumanji.
I'm not going to lie to you. I was never a fan of the original Jumanji. I know everybody considers this to be one of Robin Williams' classic movies. This is right up there for a lot of people with Mrs. Doubtfire and Good Morning Vietnam and all these great movies he did back then. But me personally, I just never was really into that first movie. I never was into it. It scared me as a little kid seeing the trailers for this, and I just had no intention of ever watching this movie. But when I finally did, I just never really got anything out of it, and I think I could tell you why that is. The concept is not bad. It's based off of a best-selling book by Chris Van Allsburg, who would also be the writer of The Polar Express and also would write Zathura, which is a spin-off of Jumanji. But the thing that really strikes me right off the bat, looking for the clips for this again, is that the visual effects of this movie, for the most part, really do not stay up. This is a movie that's almost 30 years old, and the effects for this movie look abysmal at points. Like, you could just tell that these visuals were not up to speed, and they couldn't and it's amazing how Sony hasn't found a way to up the visual effects when they put this out on 4K or Blu-ray, because you're putting it into a higher definition. And is that really the best you could do on that front? And that's one of the reasons why a lot of the special effects in this movie really do not hold up well at all. The visual effects, at least, really do not hold up well. They really do seem dated. Some of the practical effects, I'll give them credit for, do still hold out. There are some elements in there that I do think are very interesting. And I do think that there is more to this movie than I would say I really don't like about it. I do like this idea. I do like this concept of having these people playing this board game that releases these things from the jungle every time you take a turn. And I also like the scenes where Robin Williams and Bonnie Hunt, knowing what they have been through in the past, is when they have to play this again, their first reaction is just like, they have this tension, they have this tense nerve inside of them that, like, what the hell's going to happen here? And it's just like those moments do work pretty well, but after a while, the movie does get kind of repetitive. I mean, it does get kind of, so it's the same thing over and over again. The humor isn't really all that funny. The acting, everyone's doing the best they can in terms of the acting. I do like that there's a little bit of a message there at the end, and I do like the way the movie ends. It's that stuff in the middle, however, that just seems like, let's just keep doing this stuff over and over again. Let's not really have that much of a premise to work off of with that. And it's a fun premise to work off of, honestly. But I just didn't think the script for this movie was as strong as they could have had. And like I said, the visual effects get really unnerving after a while. But I mean, honestly, but despite the fact that I really don't like this movie, I really do like the Jumanji franchise as a whole. Like, I remember watching the TV series when it was on UPN in the late 90s. I do remember seeing the spin-off film, the one directed by Jon Favreau, and thinking that was actually kind of a decent film. And I've really liked the other two Jumanji movies, The Welcome to the Jungle and The Next Level. I like what they did with that concept, and they actually did something new and creative with it that I think works very well. I think those are two very good movies, and to me personally, those are the ones I really like out of this series the most. But the first film, I'm one of those few people that really don't like it. I really did not care for it when it first was coming out, and even after I got a chance to see it, I freely admit that I did not think the movie was all that great. I still try to get into it every once in a while, but it's just not there, at least in that first movie. Like I said, I think the other movies in the series work a whole lot better. At least that's my opinion. I know everybody really likes this movie. I know they put it up there highly with Robin Williams' work, but just me personally, I was never a big fan of this movie, and I can tell you right now, I'm one of the few people that actually probably thinks that, because I know this first movie has a huge fan base, and more power to you, but that's the power of freedom of speech and the power of having your opinion out there. You can say whatever you want, and that's just the way you have to think about it at some points, and so on and so forth. So I'm just dragging this on and on as we go. Okay, so anyway, now that I'm done with that, let's Jumanji. Let's move on to the next movie that we have here, and that is Michael Mann's Heat, starring Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and Val Kilmer.
He's here. I can feel it.
You search for the scent of your prey, and then you hunt them down. That's the only thing you're committed to.
It keeps me sharp, on the edge, where I gotta be.
You want to be making moves on the street? Allow nothing to be in your life that you cannot walk out on in 30 seconds flat if you spot the heat around the corner.
My life's a disaster zone because I spend all my time chasing guys like you around the block.
I do what I do best. I take scores. You do what you do best. Trying to stop guys like me.
You've been walking through our life dead.
All I am is what I'm going after. If I'm there, I gotta put you away. I won't like it, but I'll tell you, you are going down.
What if you do got me boxed in? I gotta put you down. Because no matter what, you will not get in my way. I will not hesitate for a second.
Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Val Kilmer in a Michael Mann film. Heat.
Pay no attention to the fact that Al Pacino and Robert De Niro only have one scene together in this entire movie. Yeah, that's one of the things that they really sold the movie on. They basically sold this as see two of the greatest living actors in this movie to get back to back, and even though they're only in it for really 2 scenes altogether, and we'll delve more into that in just a moment. But this is Michael Mann's Heat, and though he was well known previously from Manhunter and Last of the Mohicans, I think this is the one that really put his name on the map as a director. Michael Mann, I should say. He really did make one of the best crime capers ever with this movie. I mean, the action in this movie is some of the best action that you will ever see to film. The sequences are so stylized, they're very tension-filled, they're amazingly done. I mean, the armed robbery scene alone, I think, is more than worth the price of admission. And, the acting overall is really good. You get, like I said, Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, they're great in this. They have really good performances, but, you promise to have 2 of the greatest living actors of the time on screen together. Give them more than 2 scenes. Like, there's only 2 scenes in particular where they actually have a scene. There's a scene in the restaurant, and then there's the scene towards the end of the movie. And even towards the climax of the movie, it's not really them together. It's like really, it's a little bit of a flaw, but because the rest of the movie is so good, you kind of just let it slide because the rest of the movie has been so damn good up to this point. I mean, but still, the trailers say that the 2 actors are going to collide, and really, they only do it twice in the movie, but they would pair up again in Righteous Kill, which was a decent film, not that great, and then they later would meet up again in The Irishman, which was a far superior film. But the rest of the acting overall is very good here. Val Kilmer, the late Tom Sizemore, Jon Voight, Ashley Judd, McLetty Williamson, Amy Brenneman, Wes Studi, Hank Azaria, Natalie Portman, William Fichtner, Ted Levine, Dennis Haysbert. A lot of notable names in this movie. I mean, there's just so much about this movie that works. It's amazing. The action is good. The action is great, I should say. The acting is really good. The story works. The pacing is surprisingly good for a movie that's over 3 hours long. It's just a damn good movie. It's one of the definitive action classics. And really, you should go and check this movie out if you haven't seen it already. Also, one more thing I'd like to point out is that Heat is one of those interesting movies where nearly every single studio has had the releasing rights to this particular film, and you'll see what I mean in just a second. So the movie was released by Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers put the first video out for it, the first DVD release out of it, and then the entire Regency Enterprises library was sold to 20th Century Fox. 20th Century, Regency Enterprises. A lot of the movies that Warner Brothers had worked on with them went over to Fox, and then they later at the same time they later paired up with Paramount Pictures for the Paramount's home entertainment library. That brief time when Paramount and Warner Brothers were putting movies out together, and it was released alongside the Ultimate Gangsters collection with contemporary classics like Mean Streets, The Untouchables, Goodfellas, and The Departed. Most of those movies were Warner Brothers movies, but again, that was that time when Paramount and Warner Brothers were putting out movies together. And then recently, you just had Disney, who essentially picked up all the Regency movies from Fox because they bought the Fox library, and they recently put that on in 4K. So it's a weird thing. Like, you're almost waiting for Universal and Lionsgate to eventually get the rights to this, so the trifecta can continue. But I just thought that was very weird and interesting that a film that started off being released by Warner Brothers went to Fox because of because they bought the library of the Regency Enterprises. Briefly was at Paramount, and now is owned by Disney. It's just a weird situation. I think it's very intriguing, but like I said, bottom line is Heat is an amazing movie. I thought I wanted to bring that little tidbit up for you, but yeah, like I said, if you haven't seen Heat already, you might as well go and see it because you do yourself a huge disservice by not doing so. So anyway, let's move on to the next movie, and that is the remake of Sabrina.
Season, Harrison Ford is at his best. He puts the sparkle back into romance.
I never thought of you as the dancer.
Call me Bojangles at the office. Julia Ormond is absolutely dazzling. She's terrific. Siskel and Ebert give Sabrina 2 very enthusiastic thumbs up. I need her. I don't need anything. Harrison Ford, Julia Ormond.
What was he like as a child?
Sure film. Sabrina, rated PG, starts Friday, December 15th.
So this is essentially a remake of the 1954 Billy Wilder film, which starred Audrey Hepburn and William Holden. And as you see, Harrison Ford is playing the William Holden character, and Julia Ormond is playing the title character as well. And it also stars Greg Kinnear in what would be his first starring film role in the movie. And, of course, Greg Kinnear at this point was best known for his work on Talk Soup, and later he was actually considered to be a contender for the late night position whenever David Letterman left, but he essentially left late night to focus on a film career, and it actually worked out pretty well for him because within a couple of years he was nominated for an Oscar for As Good as It Gets, and he's turned out to be a pretty good actor. And this is a movie where for his his film debut, it's a pretty good job. Like, I think he does work very well next to Harrison Ford and Julia Ormond. The movie overall is really enjoyable. It's directed by Sidney Pollack, but it was mostly seen as a disappointment critically and financially. Not even critically, but financially it was a disappointment. But it got positive reviews, but compared to the other movie, the original Sabrina, it was definitely seen as a letdown. But I think it was a pretty good movie. I think it was a good modernization of this movie, which would be very hard to do for the time period. But I thought they did a pretty good job with it. I like that Harrison Ford plays a role that we're not used to seeing him do that often. I think that's a very unique performance for him. And the chemistry between him and Julia Ormond works pretty well here, as well as Greg Kinnear and Ormond. And you also have Angie Dickinson, Richard Crenna, John Wood, Lauren Holly, Dana Ivy in this. A pretty good cast overall. A lot of elements of this movie do work. Does it work all the way through? Not really. It's kind of a mediocre film for the... I won't even go that far as to say that, like, it's hard to compare this to the original movie. It's definitely a step down, but on its own, I think it does a pretty good job of modernizing the story and making it work for what it is. I would highly recommend checking out Sabrina if you haven't seen it already, just to see a different Harrison Ford than you're used to seeing, because this is a really good performance from him that feels very different from what we're used to seeing him. So that's Sabrina. Let's move on to the next movie, and that is Ang Lee's Sense and Sensibility.
One motion picture will bring you all the surprises that life and love can offer.
You are the loveliest girls I ever set eyes on. Can you not get them married, Mrs. Dashwood?
Marianne and Eleanor, as different as two sisters can be.
Do you love him? I do not attempt to deny that I think very highly of him, that I greatly esteem him.
Esteem him? Like him?
Eleanor's not like you or me, dear. She does not like to be swayed by her emotions.
Columbia Pictures invites you
The more I know of the world, the more I am convinced that I shall never see a man whom I can truly love.
to fall deeply
Marianne, you must change. You will catch a cold. What care I for colds when there is such a man? You will care very much when your nose swells up.
You are right. Help me, Eleanor.
from Jane Austen's timeless classic
There's some blue sky. Let us chase it.
comes a motion picture beyond all expectations. Academy Award winner Emma Thompson, Alan Rickman, Kate Winslet, and Hugh Grant. Sense and Sensibility.
Obviously, this is based off of Jane Austen's novel, and you have a lot of interesting elements here. You've got a fairly young group of people involved in this movie. Ang Lee had not become a household name up until this movie, and he was picked because of his work that he did in China with The Wedding Banquet, and from the producer of this movie, she actually went to him to bring him in here to appeal to a wider audience, and it really turned his career around because he not only made a hit movie, he got nominated for several Oscars, including Best Director, I believe, or maybe he didn't get nominated for Best Director for this movie, but of course he went on to win 2 Oscars over the next couple of years after this movie came out. But this was the movie that kind of launched his name into the stratosphere, and it really was something for Emma Thompson too, who had just won an Oscar 3 years prior, I should say, for writing Howard's End. And she won another Oscar for this movie, except this time she won it for Best Actress. Oh, no, Best Adapted Screenplay, I'm sorry. She won the Best Actress for Howard's End back in '92. I just saw that right there when I'm looking at the description here. But they made a pretty good movie. I'm not really one of these people that goes for these period piece movies all that often, but this is a really good one. And like I said, it really launched Ang Lee into the stratosphere as a director. And it was another great script written by Emma Thompson, who also does a very good job acting-wise in this. Kate Winslet, this was another breakout role for her. Alan Rickman is pretty good in the movie, so is Hugh Grant. There's so many elements about this movie that just work so well. It's a well-made film. It's one of the best Jane Austen adaptations ever, and it's a great movie on so many levels, just from the scope of the film, the visual wonder of it, the writing, the direction, the acting. Everything about it just works so well here. And even if you're not a big fan of Jane Austen's work, you can still find a lot to really enjoy about this movie. Like I said, I'm not really a whole lot into Jane Austen's work, but I found a lot to really like about this movie. There is a lot there to admire. I think anybody can go into it and find a lot to really appreciate about it. So that's my thoughts on Sense and Sensibility. Let's move on to the last movie that we have here, and that is Kenneth Branagh's Othello.
The touch of a lover. The point of a dagger. The art of betrayal. Beware, my lord of jealousy. Look to your wife. Observe her well with Cassio. Lawrence Fishburne, Irene Jacob, and Kenneth Branagh. Strangle her in her bed. Othello, rated R. Now playing in selected cities.
Certainly not the first version of Othello to be put onto the big screen, and it would definitely not be the last. Before this movie, Orson Welles made an Othello movie where he started in it, and Laurence Olivier was in one in the 60s. This is the first one since then, and most notably, it's the one that's the first cinematic reproduction of the play released by a major studio that cast an African-American actor in the role of Othello, that of course being Lawrence Fishburne. And there's been other independent versions where Ted Lang and Yaphet Kotto had played him, but this was a pretty big deal. And for Kenneth Branagh, he was at that point where his name was still very much prevalent, and this is not a film that's directed by him. But, Oliver Parker is the one who's directed this. He would later go on to direct stuff like Dorian Gray, St. Trinian's, Johnny English Reborn. Not a lot of notable movies, but a name that you may be very familiar with. And I thought Kenneth Branagh was one of the directors on this, but turns out he's not. He's just playing Iago in here. And he plays Iago very well in here. In fact, the cast overall is what really sells the movie overall. Lawrence Fishburne does a great job playing Othello. Irene Jacob played Desdemona very well. Kenneth Branagh, as I said, is great as Iago. You have Nathaniel Parker in here. Michael Sheen in here. it's a pretty straightforward adaptation of Shakespeare, and it's done pretty well. There's a lot of great things to admire about the movie from the visual level and also the acting level. The story, it's pretty, the story overall is pretty much what you see from the original book, the original poems, I should say. Well, it's a tragedy, okay. Well, maybe not a poem, but you get what I'm talking about. But if you've read Othello, you pretty much get everything you see here. But it, like I said, it works because of the acting and the visuals. Story, not really all that creative, but it does more than enough to really make this movie pretty enjoyable for what it is. It's a film that I admit, I went into it with not a whole lot of expectations for it, but really the performances are what carried it all the way through, and so the visual wonder of the film. It's a really good movie. If you haven't seen Othello, I highly recommend checking it out. It's probably one of the more underrated movies Lawrence Fishburne has ever been attached to. And that's pretty much all I got to say about that one. That's Othello.
All right.
Hearts. Crankier.
If my dog was as ugly as you, I'd shave his ass and teach him to walk backwards.
And grumpier than ever before.
Come on, let's see what you're made of.
Age has not brought them wisdom. Instead, it's brought them something lonely, far more desirable.
Compliment her on how great she looks.
Already got that covered.
Let me hear it.
There may be lots of fish in the sea, Maria, but you're the only one I would like to mount over my fireplace.
That's not bad.
I haven't been with a man for a long time.
Me neither.
They're not getting older. They're getting luckier. But just when he thought he'd hooked the catch of a lifetime,
I think I liked you better before you were getting any.
she takes over his favorite bait shop.
You should see the sign she put up, honey.
Stop moving.
If Max could see me now, I'd never live it down.
Jack Lemmon, Walter Matthau, Anne Mark, and Sophia Loren.
Buon appetito.
Should we ask her for some garlic bread?
I'd rather kiss a dead moose's butt.
So I'll call you?
Grumpier, old man.
What do you say we go back to my place? I'll show you my cannelloni.
Well, you're going to stick with what works.
Did you like the first Grumpy Old Men? You probably will like this one. I mean, it's pretty much that type of a movie. It's pretty much the same movie as the first film. But, I mean, the first movie was okay. It was a decent little comedy. Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau working off each other. That's usually good for comedy gold. You have Anne Margaret again in this. You also have Kevin Pollak and Daryl Hannah back in here once again. Burgess Meredith is back in here. The new addition of Sophia Loren, who comes into this. And, I mean, really, there's not much more I can really say about this one because it is pretty much just the first movie again, except they add Sophia Loren's character into this, and I guess there's a little bit more comedy there, but not really. It's kind of, like I said, it's pretty much the same movie as the first one, except instead of taking place in the winter, this takes place in the fall, and it's really something where you have to look at this and go, did you like the first movie? Because if you did, you might enjoy this one too. It's nothing too spectacular, but the first movie wasn't that spectacular either. It was still a fun movie, and I think this is still a very fun movie just because it's Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau working off each other again. And I think that's one of the main reasons why this film still works. I mean, it's not a great movie. It's not even a good sequel, honestly, but the first movie was just okay. I feel like this one's on the same level, too. It's a comfort food movie. These two movies are very much comfort food movies. You go in there not expecting a whole lot, but you go in there knowing that you're going to see Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau making you laugh, and it does a pretty good job of it. Like, it's for the time, it works for what it is. It works very much for what it is. Nothing spectacular, nothing too crazy, but it's still a fun sequel. If you like the first one, you're definitely going to like the second one. So, that's Grumpier Old Men. Let's take a look now at the next movie that we have here, and that is Waiting to Exhale.
This fall, 20th Century Fox invites you to meet 4 incredible friends.
Savannah.
A long time ago, I asked God to send me a decent man. I got Robert, Cedric, Darryl, and Kenneth. God's got some serious explaining to do.
Bernadine.
I always thought if I gave him what he needed, he'd give me what I needed. It's amazing what can happen when you give a man power over your life.
Robin.
I don't know why I always pick the wrong men to fall in love with. I finally gave up on the last lying, sneaky, whorish Pisces once I realized he was never going to marry me.
Gloria.
The last time my ex-husband was here, he did me a favor by spending the night. Lord, let him be merciful again tonight.
Waiting to Exhale. Based on the #1 best-selling novel. Coming to theaters October 1995.
So this was a movie that was kind of a big deal, obviously, for a number of reasons. I mean, one, you have Whitney Houston in her first film after The Bodyguard, and Angela Bassett, who had won Raise a couple years ago for What's Love Got to Do with It. You also have Loretta Devine in here, a great character actress, and Lena Rochon, who was previously in Boomerang, if I'm not mistaken. She was also in Harlem Nights, and she wasn't as well known as the other three actresses in this movie, but I mean, the real reason why this movie does work, honestly, is because they got 4 really good actresses to work off each other, and their chemistry is very good. Like, the casting overall in this movie is really good. Not only just them, but you also have Dennis Haysbert, Michael Beach, Gregory Hines, Donald Faison, McLetty Williamson, Forrest Whitaker. This is his first movie he's directed, and the score is done by Babyface, Ken Babyface Edmonds. It's not really anything that spectacular. It is basically kind of a chick flick. It is really much a chick flick, but compare this to something like the more recent 80 for Brady, which I badmouth that movie for obvious reasons, because that was like that's a bad chick flick where you're not paying attention to what's on screen, you're paying attention to what your friends are wearing and all that kind of stuff. It's that kind of a movie, and it tricks men into thinking that it's going to be something interesting because it's got Tom Brady in it. I'm basically just using this time to bash that movie because it's still one of the worst movies, the worst movie of the year so far. But my point is, chick flicks can actually be good even if you're a guy. Like, I watched this movie, I wasn't really expecting a whole lot from it, but I thought it was alright. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it did have its lasting impact. There are moments in this movie that you still see nowadays in like memes and all that kind of stuff, scenes that are still very much well remembered in this movie. I mean, it's just a movie that has had that following. I mean, they make jokes about it back in the 90s. The Simpsons made the great joke about, did you get Waiting to Exhale? Marge was asking if they got Waiting to Exhale from the video store, and Homer was just like, well, they put us on the Waiting to Exhale waiting list, and they said, don't push your luck. It's just like, this movie did have a following back then. I mean, yeah, but I think what the biggest takeaway is from this movie is the 4 leading actresses. Whitney Houston gives another really good performance and shows that, hey, she was actually a really good actress back then. Angela Bassett, I mean, what more do I need to say about Angela Bassett? Loretta Devine is a great actress that every time I see her in something, I usually will go and see it because I do like her work. And I like Lena Rochon in here. I do like her in this movie. And I think everybody here does their parts very well. It's not a great story overall. It kind of falls into predictable territory, but it's perfectly fine for what it is. It's a solidly made movie. It's a well-made film that I think if you go into it with the right note, if you're a guy and you have no real interest in these chick flicks, I think you could watch this one day and be like, it actually wasn't half bad. That's kind of what I felt like about it. Like, it's a solid film. It's not one I'd watch over and over again, but I'm glad I saw it. I mean, I'm glad that I did watch it and I did get some value out of it. But I think, yeah, this is definitely a chick flick, but a decent chick flick, honestly. So, that's Waiting to Exhale. Let's move on to the next movie that we have here, and that is Disney's second attempt at the Huckleberry Finn story, Tom and Huck.
America's 2 best friends, Tom and Huck, are dropping in for the holidays. They're looking for treasure and finding nothing but fun. Jonathan Taylor Thomas and Brad Renfro. Tom and Huck, plus a special added attraction. Timon and Pumbaa in a new cartoon short, Stand By Me, rated G. Playing only with Disney's Tom and Huck, rated PG. Starts Friday, December 22nd.
I mean, the interesting thing about this movie is, one, they actually made another story about Huckleberry Finn, because they just did one 2 years prior. But the same director who did that movie, Stephen Sommers, actually was one of the writers on here, as was David Lowery, who's written some other works as well. So, You basically have John Travolta. That'd be a much different movie if it was John Travolta. Jonathan Taylor Thomas and Brad Renfro. This was when Disney was trying to make him the next big movie star, and needless to say, that really didn't work out so well. This one obviously takes itself much more seriously than The Adventures of Huck Finn, but obviously I think The Adventures of Huck Finn is a much better movie. With this film, however, it's just kind of like, I get what you're trying to do. I get you're trying to make a comedy out of this, but comedy still has to be funny, and there's not really a whole lot of interesting comedy in this movie. I mean, Jonathan Taylor Thomas and Brad Renfro, I guess, are okay in this, but they're not really given a whole lot to do here. It's just basically, let's just take everything from Tom Sawyer, kind of add the Mark Twain book, and just make a modernized period piece film. Which there's modern bits of comedy in here, but I will say that it's not on the levels of something as bad as something like A Kid in King Arthur's Court, but it's a largely forgettable movie, to say the least. And even with that short that they show at the beginning, they just basically took an episode of the Timon and Pumbaa cartoon series and just plastered it on the big screen. And it's a funny musical short that they did, but you could just wait for it to come on TV in a couple of months, or even wait for it to come out on video, because they put it on videos of different Disney movies at the beginning. So what was the point of even putting it on the big screen if you're not even going to do anything about it? At least with the Animaniacs short, that one at least looked like it was trying to be a little bit more cinematic than the show, but I don't know. I don't know what the decision was, but the short, I think, was very funny overall, but it's no Runaway Brain. It's no, it's none of these other shorts that I've talked about before, but, I mean, it still probably would be the best thing you would get from this package. Tom and Huck, the movie itself, I don't think was really all that great, so anyway, let's move on to the next movie, and that is Jean-Claude Van Damme, starring in Sudden Death.
As we get ready for the seventh and final game of the Stanley Cup Finals, you can feel the electricity in the air, and there's no question, it just sends a chill up your spine, Paul.
That's a fact, Mike. And to make things even more exciting, the Vice President of the United States is here this evening.
Don't leave your seats.
Doesn't look too good.
911 Emergency Services.
I'm calling you from the Civic Arena. The Vice President is being held hostage in the owner's box. And they've got my daughter, too.
What is your objective? $1,700,000,000. We're still evaluating the situation.
They want money, a lot of it. Give it to them.
Do not try any kind of rescue. Do you understand me?
If you're not going to pay, say so. I'll get my daughter.
When the game ends, everyone in this box and in this arena will die by explosion, fire, and panic.
Tonight, 17,000 hockey fans have been taken hostage.
Enough bombs have been planted in this building to stop all the clocks in the hemisphere.
But only one of them knows it.
I'm going to try to stop you.
I know where the bombs are, so I know where you're going.
Then come and get me.
We are going to do this by the numbers.
What number was that?
Now he has more to lose than anyone.
I said, no vehicles on the grounds, no helicopters in the air. What part of that did you not understand?
Jean-Claude Van Damme. Powers boost. Sudden death.
So I know what you're thinking. Yeah, it's another Die Hard clone, but you know what? It's still one of the best Die Hard clones out there, if there's any consolation to it. But then again, this is also one of Jean-Claude Van Damme's best movies, if not the best movie, I think, from him. I think it's still his strongest film overall, but then again, maybe it's because I have a soft spot for this because I'm from near Pittsburgh, and this was filmed at the Civic Arena, which was then the home of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and there's a lot of Pittsburgh Penguins stuff in here. The team they're facing is the Washington Capitals. The announcers are the Penguins announcers, and it's been gone. It's been replaced with PPG Paints Arena, but still seeing this take place in a familiar area, that's maybe why I kind of like this movie. It's kind of the same thing that I had with Striking Distance. I mean, Striking Distance is not a good movie, but I have a kind of a soft spot for it because it was filmed around Pittsburgh. But I think what's very interesting about this particular film is that when they were making this movie in the early production stages, it was actually supposed to be a comedy. Like, the scene where Van Damme fights the Pittsburgh Penguins mascot was something that was in the original comedic script, but they said, screw it, we're just going to keep it in the final cut of the movie. It's ridiculous, but it's still pretty damn entertaining, and really there's no point in criticizing the story overall because it does feel like a Die Hard clone, except it takes place in a sports arena, so it's kind of more like in the lines of something like 2-Minute Warning and Black Sunday, those 70s sports thrillers that take place in a sports arena. But I will say some of the action sequences are just incredible to look at. Like, you could tell that they do put some time and effort into these creative action sequences. Like, you get these, like, the end of the movie really does a good job of keeping you on the edge of your seat. Like, you have scenes where Jean-Claude Van Damme has to make sure that he has to check and see if the game is going to go to overtime or get these people out of there. There's a part where he goes on the top of the arena and has to jump through these lights, grab these lights and everything to get to the terrorist played by Powers Booth, who's a fun over-the-top villain. Even when it gets really, really corny at times, because it will get very corny, like the final climax where Powers Booth ends up dying, there's a shot where Jean-Claude Van Damme is looking at this helicopter, and it looks so fake, it's so cheesy, but I'll give them credit, though. They really just said, yeah, we're going to keep it like this. So it's like, I love how it acknowledges the cheesiness as well, but also acknowledges that it wants to make a fun movie. I mean, the effort is definitely there, putting these action sequences in. And the music overall is very good. John Debney does a very good job with this Michael Kamen-esque Die Hard score that he has here. Yeah, Sudden Death is not a great movie, but it's a fun-as-hell action film. It's one of the best Die Hard clones, and arguably the best Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. It's the one I will watch over and over again. Great action, nicely done effects for the most part. Even when the corny stuff happens, it's still very funny. It's a fun approach to a then cliche concept, and even after all these years, it's still very much fun to watch, and certainly a whole lot better than Welcome to Sudden Death, which if you've never seen that movie, it's probably a good reason why you should never see that movie. So, anyway, Sudden Death, that's that one. Let's move on to the last movie of this particular episode, and that is Anthony Hopkins starring in Oliver Stone's Nixon.
His roots were humble.
I grew up here in a little lemon ranch, the poorest lemon ranch in California.
His ambitions huge.
We are going to win this time. I can feel it.
Triumphant in victory. Bitter in defeat.
It's your fault, Henry. If your people are talking to the press.
He changed the world.
I love that man. I love him.
Lost a nation.
There's a cancer on the presidency, and it's growing.
And paid the price of power.
You're the most decent person I know.
They don't know the real you.
You got the Constitution hanging by a thread because you went to Whittier, not to Yale.
You're not threatening me, are you?
Presidents don't threaten. You don't have to.
He's completely lost touch with reality.
How much more is it going to cost?
When do the rest of us stop paying off your debt?
This is Nixon's finish.
Miranda's cry. I don't cry. You fight. Nixon. This film is not yet rated. Starts December 20th.
Trust me, that's one of the shortest trailers you will see for this movie. I swear, if you go online and look for trailers for this, there's trailers that are almost 4 hours long. The movie itself is around 4 hours long, pretty much, but there's trailers on here that are like 4 minutes long that were in theaters, and it gives away a ton of what the movie's about. And very interestingly, that this came out only a year and a half after Richard Nixon passed away. Like, he had died in 1994, and then they just said, let's make the movie now. I mean, and Oliver Stone, I mean, he works very well in this type of situation. I mean, he did JFK, and that was a great movie. This is probably the last movie of his golden peak, and even then, this is probably the lesser of the movies he's made, but I still think it's a very solid film. I like the way that he portrays Nixon as kind of this complex character, and the movie even begins with a disclaimer saying that this is an attempt to understand the truth based on numerous public sources and on an incomplete historical record. It's a very interesting take on that, and the casting overall is great. You have a ton of great talent here. Hopkins, Joan Allen playing his wife, Annabeth Gish, Marley Shelton, Bai Ling, Powers Booth, J.T. Walsh, E.G. Marshall, James Woods, Paul Sorvino, Bob Hoskins, Larry Hagman, Ed Harris, David Hyde Pierce. They kind of use that splicing technology that Forrest Gump used to put Anthony Hopkins' character in archival footage. And, you know, it's a pretty interesting... It was an interesting time back then. And this is actually the second of Oliver Stone's 3 films about the American presidency, because, of course, he made JFK. Then he would follow this up 13 years later with W, which was... We'll get to that one later. I thought it was alright, but it was a movie that definitely was the lesser of the 3 films. I do like what Oliver Stone does in this case, presenting this interesting portrayal of Richard Nixon that many people haven't really don't really talk about when they talk about Richard Nixon. Like, he was a little bit of a complex guy. Like, he made decisions that he had to do to keep his job, and it's a very interesting situation, and I think that the movie does a very good job of presenting it in this unique way. Like no matter who you really are, if you didn't like Nixon, if you like Nixon, I think you can get a lot out of this movie, and I think it's because Anthony Hopkins just plays this character so well in this movie. It's a very good film. Definitely not one of Oliver Stone's best films overall, but it's still a really solid film. Like, if you want to see peak Oliver Stone, this is definitely one of the last great films he did in that little stretch era that started his career before he kind of nosedived a little bit after this. But, yeah, like I said, Nixon's a pretty decent film.
Calling 12 Monkeys, riveting and spellbinding.
He thinks he comes from the future.
A time-warped thriller loaded with suspense. Wackos everywhere, plague and madness. It's Bruce Willis's best screen performance.
The thing mutates, we live underground!
Madeline Stowe is terrific.
5 billion people are gonna die!
Golden Globe nominee Brad Pitt is magnificent.
Do you realize where he comes from?
12 Monkeys is one of the year's very best films. 12 Monkeys, rated R. Now playing in select areas. Starts Friday everywhere.
Often this movie is considered one of Terry Gilliam's best movies, and can't argue with that. I mean, it's a great sci-fi film. It features phenomenal performances from Bruce Willis, Madeline Stowe, and especially Brad Pitt, who really cemented himself as a leading actor this year with Seven, and now this movie that actually got him a nomination for Best Supporting Actor at the Academy Awards, and he actually won the Golden Globe for this performance, and you can definitely see why. He's having the time of his life in this movie. You also have Christopher Plummer and David Morrison here, and it's just a cool, stylized sci-fi film that just really... It's amazing how well this movie has stood up over the years. When most people consider Terry Gilliam's best movies, it's not surprising that this one is definitely on the list of one of the best movies that he's ever made, and quite frankly, you can't really argue with him on that. You also have the script by the writers of Unforgiven and Hero, and just the pieces come together so well here to make a really cool, slick sci-fi film that still holds up after all these years. Really, there's not much more I can add to this conversation. If you haven't seen 12 Monkeys already, you're pretty much doing yourself a huge disservice by not doing so. So, yeah, definitely check out 12 Monkeys. That's really all I got for you on that one. Let's move on to the next movie that we have here, and that is a holdover from last week, and that is the animated feature Balto.
Amblin Entertainment has always brought us films filled with wonder, drama, and pure magic. On December 22nd, Universal Pictures and Amblimation proudly present an all-new animated adventure.
We can get that medicine through.
Balto!
The unforgettable legend of Balto.
You're a hero!
Balto, rated G. Starts Friday, December 22nd at theaters everywhere.
So a couple things to note with Balto. This was the final animated feature Amblin Entertainment produced before Steven Spielberg eventually teamed up with Jeffrey Katzenberg to form DreamWorks Animation. Basically DreamWorks in general, but then came DreamWorks Animation. But I gotta say, they went on a pretty good high note with this film. I think what hurt the movie in terms of the box office was the fact that it was coming right off the heels of Toy Story, this movie that really had changed the animation game forever. Like, CG animation was not the big deal that it is nowadays, but it really opened the door, and mostly because of that, I think it's why that movie didn't hold up well financially, but it has gone on to have a huge following cult-wise on video and home entertainment overall, and I think it holds up a lot better than I think people give it credit for. I mean, the animation in this movie just looks so incredible. This is probably the best one of the 3 animation films they did in the 90s that has the best animation. Like, it's slick, it's very stylish for the time, it looks beautiful on so many levels. I think the voice actors overall do a very good job here. It's interesting how Kevin Bacon plays Balto very well here, but for some reason, in like the second half of the movie, like towards the climax, like starting from the third act of the movie to the end of the film, they kind of cut his dialogue off for some reason. I don't know why. It just felt kind of weird that they did that. Like, you'll still hear him every once in a while, but it's so weird that they did that. But for the little bit that for the bit that you do hear his voice, he does play it pretty well. I think everybody here does a pretty good job with it. Bob Hoskins, Phil Collins, Bridget Fonda, Jen Cummings. Yeah, the story's a little bit generic, but it works for what it's trying to do. The music is nicely done. You got James Horner doing the music again. You can never go wrong with him. The live-action bridges in the opening and the closing actually do kind of work in this case. It does bridge the story together very nicely. Like, it really fits the ebb and the flow in the movie. I don't think this movie doesn't get the attention that it properly deserves. And it's actually a lot better than I think a lot of people give it credit for. Unlike 5 Goes West and We're Back, this is probably the most concrete, solid animated feature they've ever done, that the studio did. And it's a good thing that a lot of these people went on to go to DreamWorks Animation, because they only grew as filmmakers, and you can see why Balto was one of the reasons why those people still have jobs today. So with that said, that's Balto. Let's move on to the next movie, and that is Mel Brooks' Dracula, Dead and Loving It.
This is the frightening and shocking tale of Count Dracula. Vampires do exist. This one we face is unlike any other. He can change the most innocent of humans.
Oh, Jonathan, let me kiss you.
But you see, I'm British.
So are these.
Women are rendered powerless under his spell.
Stand up. Not you. Sit. You stand. No, sit. No, stand. Now, walk to the terrace door. Watch out!
His evil desire has no end.
She's alive?
She's Nosferatu.
She's Italian? Up there!
Make no mistake, he must be stopped. Leslie Nielsen, Peter McNichol, Steven Weber, Amy Yazbek, Lizette Anthony, Harvey Korman, and Mel Brooks.
If she dies, a victim of this unspeakable creature, she will become one herself.
What?
She will become one herself.
Dracula, dead and loving it.
It's good to be dead.
Another movie that really got a lot of negative flack when it came out. I mean, this was heavily panned by critics. It was not a financial hit, but, thankfully it did find an audience overall in the years to come, and really, you can kind of see why. You've got Mel Brooks, who was still doing pretty decent comedy at this time, spoof comedy in general. I mean, tell me you would take any of Mel Gibson's, that's a whole different story altogether, but tell me you would have taken Mel Brooks' 90s spoof movies over some of the crappy spoof movies we had in the late 2000s, early 2000s. I'll gladly take this over any of those movies any day. I mean, you got him, you got Leslie Nielsen, anything you usually put him in, he'll usually put his all into it, even if the movie's not that great. A cast that just includes some really funny talent. Steven Weber, Amy Yazbek, Peter McNichol, Harvey Korman, and Bancroft is in this movie as well. And it's still very, very funny stuff. There was a lot of moments in here that made me laugh out loud pretty hard. Like, it's very funny stuff. Leslie Nielsen, I think, does a great job playing Dracula. The humor in this is just so hilarious. The scene where Steven Weber and Mel Brooks are putting the stake through the heart of I guess his girlfriend in this, and the blood just splats out all over the place. It's so over the top ridiculous, but you can't help but laugh at it. Like, stuff like that is still very, very funny, and I wish a lot of spoof movies took a lot from these movies, like these films and the Zucker Brothers films in the 90s, and didn't just do what they did, what eventually happened later on, because Scary Movie was such a success, and just parody whatever movie is out there. And like, even when Leslie Nielsen started a movie that parodied nearly every movie, that was much funnier than anything like Meet the Spartans or Date Movie or Epic Movie. Like I said, I'll gladly take this over any of those movies any day of the week. I think it's a very funny film. Definitely not up there with some of Mel Brooks' best movies, and this is the last film he ever did as a director. I mean, he still has written some stuff, he's still produced some stuff, but this is still a really solid film. If you want to see good, funny Mel Brooks-style comedy, you'll definitely get a lot of it in this movie. It's a ton of fun. I love this movie so much. Dracula, Dead and Loving It. Definitely check it out. You will not be disappointed about it if you like this style of comedy. So, let's take a look at the next movie, which is a comedy in and of itself, if you like notoriously bad misfires, and that is Gina Davis and Matthew Modine in the infamous Cutthroat Island.
From the director of Cliffhanger, here she comes. And Die Hard 2 comes the action-adventure event of the season. Open fire!
Island. Rated PG-13. Starts Friday, December 22nd.
So let's start with some of the obvious production problems before we actually get to the movie. We should note that Gina Davis and Rennie Harlan were married at the time, and usually there's a saying in Hollywood, never work with your spouse, even though these two actually ended up making a much better movie together after this with The Long Kiss Goodnight. But Gina Davis was basically known for light comedies and wanted to turn her into an action-adventure star, so they went to Caracol Pictures, which had already been in debt when the movie went into production. The film had like a $60 million budget initially, and then it grew and grew. It got a $20 million investment from Paul Verhoeven's Showgirls, Last of the Dogmen, and Stargate, and they thought, of all those three movies, Stargate actually ended up being the only big success out of that. And also, they aggressively marketed this movie to overseas distributors, thinking that it was going to be a big hit. Not only that, you had all these casting concerns in here. Michael Douglas was actually going to play the Matthew Modine character in this. He quit on the film, so he had to find another person to take over. They went to nearly everybody: Tom Cruise, Keanu Reeves, Russell Crowe, Liam Neeson, Jeff Bridges, pretty much anybody back then who was a named star. But they went with Matthew Modine, which, a decent actor, but I don't know. I don't think he's really established himself as a leading actor. He's been a great character actor over the years, though. Oliver Reed was fired from the film because he got into a bar fight and attempted to expose himself to Gina Davis. Shooting was delayed for a number of reasons, and the movie essentially went from a $60 million budgeted film to a $98 million movie, and only brought back $10 million. It was seen at the time as the most expensive box office flop of all time, and even to this day, it's still in the top 5 worst money losers of all time. That being said, though, is the movie really as bad as they make it out to be? Yes and no. I will say this, I don't think it's as bad as I thought it was going to be. I was just expecting a straight-up bad movie. I think there's a good idea in here, but just the execution, the writing, the fact that you can tell that these people did not have real chemistry with each other really hurt it. Like, it's clear right from the get-go that Gina Davis and Matthew Modine do not have chemistry together, and you need your two leading actors to have chemistry like this, especially in a movie like this. Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner, their chemistry has worked so well in 3 different movies, because even in something like in an action film kind of similar to this, but with Romancing the Stone, The Jewel of the Nile, and even in something like The War of the Roses, which was a different kind of action film for a number of reasons. If you haven't seen War of the Roses, you probably need to see that movie to really get it. But my point is, it was clear that these two were not going to work together as a couple of people that you need chemistry for. Most importantly, you just had Waterworld, another movie that takes place in the water. It was a high budget film. It bombed spectacularly badly, and then it kind of this and Cutthroat Island essentially kind of killed the pirate film for the longest time. I mean, it wasn't until Pirates of the Caribbean where you had a pirate film that actually was not only a success, but also a really damn good movie. But this, you could definitely see the effort is there at times. It's just that there really isn't a whole lot there to be astonished by. It's not anything spectacular. It's not really anything amazing. It's just kind of there. There's not really anything that really gets you invested in what's going on. And that's really one of the problems with the movie. There's a lot of potential here, but it just doesn't do anything to really make me want to say you should check this movie out and you might actually really enjoy it. I watched it once. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but at the same time, it doesn't really do anything to make it stand on its own. It's a film that's just really mostly a forgettable movie, and you can see why it failed miserably. And it definitely could have been a whole lot better had they actually taken some time to actually put this movie together. Those problems behind the scenes didn't turn out to be a big deal, and they actually put everything that they could to make a really good movie. But as it is, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but it's not the greatest thing I've ever seen either. So, very mixed opinion on Cutthroat Island. So let's move on to the last movie that we have here, and that is Sean Penn and Susan Sarandon starring in Tim Robbins' Dead Man Walking.
Crime.
Do you ever think about those kids?
Punishment.
I ain't gonna get no chair, Dad.
Revenge.
You're gonna fry, and I'm gonna watch you sizzle.
Mercy.
You're making it so difficult to help you.
You leave. Redemption. What is a nun doing in a place like this?
Do you know what you're getting into, sister?
Susan Sarandon. Sean Penn.
Dead Man Walking.
Dead Man Walking. Rated R. Now playing at select theaters.
Another very underrated movie coming from this time period. I mean, Tim Robbins, this was his second film he directed after Bob Roberts, which was a fantastic film. This is just as good, I think. It shows his range as a filmmaker. He can make something that's very funny and comedic and something like Bob Roberts, but he can do something very serious and something like this with Dead Man Walking. He's getting great performances out of Sean Penn, as well as Susan Sarandon, who actually won an Academy Award for Best Actress for this performance. And it's a very compelling film. It's a great character study of this guy, and the fact that he has this relationship with this, Sister Helen Prejean, played by Susan Sarandon, and he's a prisoner on death row, and she visits him as a spiritual advisor, and they eventually form a chemistry together. And this is where your chemistry has to work really well, and it works very well here. Tim Robbins does a great job with the direction on this. It's a great cast overall. Robert Prosky, Raymond J. Barry, Arlie Army, Margot Montandale, Clancy Brown, Jack Black has an appearance in this, so does Peter Skarsgård. A really good movie, a really well-made film. It's a really spectacular film. I can't recommend it enough. Dead Man Walking, definitely check it out.